I wrote to Joe Exotic in prison. Checked him out one day and I got a huge letter from him. Please be my voice to Biden. Love you, Joe Exotic. Today I want to talk about Joe Exotic. I wrote to Joe Exotic in prison. I had no idea he'd even get the letter. I didn't think he would even, respond back. But checked him out one day and I got a huge letter from him and I was super surprised, but I was very excited about it. So it's the front and the back. Apparently he has had 11,000 people write him in prison and I was one that he responded back to, so I was super excited about that. At the end of the video, I'm going to talk about some, a little bit of the letter. I'm not going to say everything in it, but just give a little overview of what he said back to me. Before Joe started his zoo, he worked as a police officer in Eastville, Texas. I had no idea that he was a cop, which I thought was pretty interesting because he did a total 360 change to the person that he is today, because he doesn't look anything like a cop. He doesn't act like a cop. His brother outed him out as gay to his parents. That's when Joe tried to commit suicide in a police car. He drove it into a bridge. He survived, but he dealt with so many injuries and they were pretty serious and major. He had to go to rehab in Florida for, to get better and to be able to walk again and just go through all that extensive rehab and all that stuff. In 1986, Joe left the police force. He opened up a pet store in Arlington, Texas with his brother, not the one that he had beef with that outed him out as gay. It was another brother that he had and his first husband. He said at this point he discovered his love for all animals, pretty much exotic animals. In 2010, that's when Joe's fame skyrocketed after he opened up his zoo. That's when his beef with Carole Baskin began. They were into it constantly. He was outperforming shows and that's really what caught her attention, because it was bad. She thought that he was really abusing the animals and that he just treated them so bad. She had people look into him. She sued him in 2010. After Joe heard about Carole Baskin pretty much hating him, that's when their war began. In 2015, Joe had somebody completely different run his zoo just because he was afraid if Carole sued him for anything else that it would take off his assets. The guy he thought was a businessman was actually a convict and a felon. So this was an even worse thing that Joe heard all this news about this guy. In 2016, Joe ran for president against Donald Trump.
I'm Joe Exotic, and today this is not going out to any kind of a presidential candidate or any politician. The purpose of this video today is to let you know who I am. First thing is, I am not cutting my hair. I'm not changing the way I dress. I refuse to wear a suit. I am gay. I've had 2 boyfriends most of my life. I currently got legally married. Thank God. It's finally legal in America. I've had some kinky sex. I have tried drugs through the younger years of my life. I am broke as shit. I have a judgment against me from some bitch down there in Florida.
And when it showed that he pretty much had no ballots or anything like that, he tried to run for governor of Oklahoma. His campaign manager said that he was crazy to think he would even win, which he thought he would, but he did not win. In 2017, Joe's husband Travis died by accidental suicide. This was a huge turning point for Joe, and it really put him into a deep depression. On January 22nd, 2020, Joe was sentenced to 22 years in prison.
Joe always joked about wishing Carole Baskin was gone because of the financial stress she caused him. No one ever took him seriously. If I offered to do it myself, as Jeff Lowe suggested, then I would have an opportunity to get off the park.
Correct.
Jeff Lowe approached me with the idea that Joe was looking for someone to kill Carole Baskin.
Correct.
Jeff wanted Carole Baskin dead and asked me to talk to Joe, ask him if he wanted her dead, and offer myself as a hitman.
Correct.
Jeff told me that if I got in trouble for the hit of Carole Baskin, that he would make sure I'd be the richest man in prison.
Correct.
I testified at trial that I was going to kill Carole by cutting her head off. This was the same method that Jeff and I discussed when planning how to kill Joe.
Correct.
Jeff created the entire murder for hire plot from start to finish.
Correct.
I never intended to kill Carole Baskin. I was never going to kill Carole Baskin. I never engaged in an overt act to kill Carole Baskin.
Correct.
I also want to talk about Doc Antle that was on Tiger King. You know, he was kind of just in and out on the show. He never really had any major parts, but I don't think Joe has ever said anything about him. Doc runs Myrtle Beach Safari in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We've been there, and Doc, he was so nice to us. He was so accommodating. His workers were great, but he's also been charged with money laundering over $500,000. And I think some wildlife charges also. He was arrested by the FBI in South Carolina. So I think that's pending, but we'll see what happens with that. Joe was sentenced. He was sent to the FMC in Fort Worth, Texas, but he's actually at the FMC now in Butner, North Carolina, and that's super close to me. It's like 3 hours away, but when I wrote to him, I didn't realize that he had already been transferred. So this letter was the last thing I was expecting to get from Joe. Also, my daughter's a fan of Joe Exotic, so this next part was for her. Please tell your 12-year-old daughter I said a special hello. Anything I say you may repeat on your show. Nothing about this is justice. He goes on just pretty much on the letter talking about Carole and all this like human trafficking thing, and it's just a whole lot of stuff. And he said I can say like anything on it, but I don't want to read the whole entire thing. But he just talks about people being human trafficked and animals being stolen, and of course, you know, he talks about Carole killing her first husband, the one that just disappeared out of nowhere. Said that he went through a meat grinder and was fed to the animals. Please be my voice to Biden. Love you, Joe Exotic. So he wants me to write to Joe Biden to get him out of prison. It felt crazy getting this letter from Joe Exotic in the mail. It was literally the last thing I thought I would even get. I wrote to him like 2 weeks. It took like 2 weeks to get a letter, and I was super surprised that I got it. The show Tiger King, I think it was the pandemic when it got like really widespread, and I remember everybody talking about it, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna watch that. There's no way that can even be interesting. But I was hooked on it. I finished it in like some days, and I read that the director was actually going to do a show on Joe Exotic, and you know, Joe got all these charges and got arrested, and he wasn't even able to use all that, so they just turned it into like a Netflix documentary. So that was pretty interesting. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, just comment down below.